Dear listeners of these stories, I wanted to say rest in peace to the dearly departed, as they truly went through more than you and I could ever imagine. While these stories were told to keep the young ages into behaving, there are also tales to keep the legacy of the dead alive and not let them be forgotten in the tunnels of time. Told in the past, present, and near future, forever and ever, to the end of time. So please, listen with intent. Terror on the Tay.
Preposterous! At Dundee Station, an engine was complaining loudly. Its crew tried to calm it down, but it was no good. "That signalman," the engine began, "has no right to say it was my fault. I left the station with the express head code, and suddenly I'm riding too roughly and lose one of my lamps. And instead of blaming the workman who didn't secure the lamps properly, he blames me! Me!" it shrilled. "It can't be helped," shrugged the driver. "Sometimes you just gotta let people believe what they believe." "Well, he's wrong," snapped the engine. The driver, who was tired of hearing his engine complaining, smiled before he continued. "Just be glad that something big didn't happen. If we were by the Tay Bridge, well, I wouldn't know what would happen." The tender engine looked at its driver. "You mean that bridge that's further down the line?" "The very same," the driver smirked. "Rubbish," the engine hissed. "That bridge has been standing as long as I've been built, and it never collapsed once." "It happened before your construction," said the driver. 1879, I believe it was. Ah, yes. My grandfather would talk about it from time to time. The story went something like this, and this was the story he told. Before the LNER became what it is today, there were smaller railway companies owning each part of the line. One of these was the North British Railway. One of the engines working this line was Clarence. He was the first engine to ever have inside cylinders as a 440 on UK soil. The prototype of his class he was, which kinda made him stuck up in a smoke box. He was very vain and always cared about his appearances instead of the line in front of him. The drivers and firemen of the locomotive said he was always hard to handle. On one particular night, Clarence was resting at the top sheds, sleeping peacefully until the shedmaster came up. "Ladybank's injectors have failed and we need another engine to take the post train. I need you, Clarence, to take it." "But I shan't," Clarence protested. "Well, you don't have any choice in the matter," said the shedmaster, grumbling. And that was that. Clarence coupled up to the train and set off in the night. Somehow, he had an uneasy feeling in the pits of his firebox. Something, he thought, was not right. Soon enough, they arrived at his least favourite part of the line, the Tay Bridge. Due to the high winds, the bridge always seemed to sway under his weight. He didn't like it one bit, and that day was no exception. As the engine crept onto the bridge, he felt it buckle and groan. Fearing the bridge would collapse, the girders were the only thing that would keep him from falling off. Come along, he said to the carriages as he began to pick up speed. This caused the already swaying bridge to rock back and forth more violently. The engine shut his eyes until they made it to the other side. The engine continued southbound, as well as giving the travel token to the signalman. While he did cross the bridge the first time, their troubles were not over yet. When he arrived in Burnt Island, there was yet another problem. The light rain turned into a major storm and it swept around the line. An 042 tender engine who was supposed to take the passenger train was adamant.
It'll knock us off the rails.
he said to the station master angrily. That bridge is not meant to hold engines during weather like this. The crew agreed. The station master looked flustered. Right, he said, grumbling. No point of taking this train on then. I just wish there's some way I could bring everybody home without having to issue refunds. I'll do it, sir, said Clarence smugly. While he knew the engine was indeed right, if he did prove successful, he would be looked at as a fearless engine who battled the storm to get passengers home. The story of glory that he wanted for so long was there, and it was for the taking. You're mad, said the old engine. Those rails will collapse no matter how slow you go. Don't be jealous when it isn't you on the front page of the papers, Fairborn, Clarence said simply. Besides, I'm going back up that line anyway. No hassle at all. And with that, everything was arranged. The driver added a single lap on top of the smoke box, notifying the signalman that the stopping train was on its way, and they set out into the stormy night to Dundee. The signalman didn't take much notice of the rain or the high winds. He had gotten a telegram that the train would be passing to collect the token. Once it was received, he went back into the box, absolutely soaked. You look alright, miss, laughed his mate. The signalman grunted. Try to work with them bloody trains at this time. They might as well close the railway when the weather gets this bad. He turned to the stove. Right, so you want kippers or herrings? Asked the signalman, but his friend wasn't paying attention. His eyes were glued to the train outside. The lamp of the engine flickered against the girders, dancing like dark spirits in the night. Then suddenly, the signalman heard a shout. What's wrong? He exclaimed. The engine! It's gone! Said his friend. The signalman peered out the window. The light coming from the amber lamp was gone. The tail lamp was also missing. Oh, you're pulling my chain, said the signalman. It's true, his mate protested. He was pale and horrified, like he'd just seen a ghost. It probably passed the section. I'll ring up the box in Dundee, and if they said that they haven't received the tokens, then we'll have to get a search party down there, said the signalman. He did so, and surprisingly, no token was received. Quickly, the search party was assembled with boats along the now defunct bridge. One of the people a part of the search team was the signalman and his mate. When they finally arrived, it was a horrific sight. The bridge was completely severed, save for the support beams which seemed to tower over them in the night sky. It wasn't hard to find them. The river was shallow that day, and some of the coaches were still visible. Everyone in those coaches were killed. No one survived. Either they were dead in the train or they ended up missing. As for the engine, the driver was interrupted when the shedmaster walked up. I'm sorry to do this, lads. The J39 that was supposed to take the goods to Leeds has a burst cylinder. I've arranged that you take the train down there tonight and then take a passenger train back up here tomorrow. A goods train? Scowled the now irritated engine. I'm a mainline express engine. That means that you can deliver it fast and early too, said the shedmaster, giving a mocking smile. The train is out on midnight after the sleeper train passes. Oh yeah, he said, as a realization dawned on him. Beware of the ghost on Tay Bridge, he chortled, as he walked back into the hut to make the final arrangements. Your grandfather saw it, said the engine to its driver. It seems like a joke around these parts. It's no joke. The failed J39 had been shunted into the sheds by a J50 earlier and had listened to the whole story. I've been taking the midnight goods train over that bridge for almost a fortnight. You will hear wails and the moans of the dead under you as you pass. Rubbish! Your dome has cracked, you senile old fool. You're just trying to justify not taking that goods train, so now I got to take it, snapped the engine. Before the J-39 could respond, the engine stormed away. Didn't say I didn't warn him. Once the sleeper train had passed, they set off into the night. Nothing heavy for the big express engine, just vans filled with building materials for the town of Leeds and further down south. Puffing hard, they passed the signal box before the bridge. The token system by now was out of date. Signals were much safer and did not cause delay. The train sped past the signal box and it started making its way onto the bridge. As it did so, the engine heard soft voices coming from below him. He thought it was just his mind playing tricks on him, but as he kept puffing along, they began to get louder and louder. The engine and its crew were horrified. Soon on the other side of the bridge, they saw an outline of an engine. The driver tried to put on the brake to avoid a collision, but right before the engine collided, it disappeared. The engine was shaken up, trembling in its tracks. The driver, shaking himself, opened the regulator, and the train moved off the bridge. All was silent until they arrived at the sheds in Leeds. Before the driver left for home, he spoke to his engine. Even though the engine had been rebuilt after the crash, he died on that bridge. No life was in him. His face was replaced with a smokebox door, and that was that. It ran like any other engine until it was scrapped in 1919. The man who witnessed the train crash in the signal box, who saw all those people die, did the honor of destroying what was left of the locomotive to put an end to its misery. That man, said the driver, was my grandfather. The driver didn't say no more. He ran to catch up to the fireman, leaving the engine in absolute thought.